Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Chem E Minds. Today, we are going to be speaking on bioethanol production. Please do pay attention to the fun facts provided at the end of each page as well. So, now, what is bioethanol? Bioethanol is a type of alcohol that is obtained from different types of plants which are rich in cellulose, such as sugarcane, sugar beets, or some grains such as corn. Although it is possible to cultivate these vegetable raw materials with the aim of using them directly for bioethanol production, this fuel can also be obtained from forestry residue and agricultural waste. Now, the thing about bioethanol that makes it so special is that it's easily a replacement for traditional gasoline or petroleum based fuel. As it comes from plants, greenhouse emissions are reduced and the atmosphere is cleaner overall. So, with the use of bioethanol, we are sure to be one step closer to actually minimizing the effects of climate change, which are caused by the traditional options of fuel, which are currently being widely used. So, now how is it obtained? So, although it may seem a new process, in reality, the first use of ethanol as fuel was back in 1826. That was when an American engineer made the first ethanol fueled combustion engine. Today, bioethanol has the same uses as the fuels which are used to generate other classes of energy, such as heat, motor power, that is for transportation, and electricity. To generate electricity, a bioethanol boiler is used, in which the fuel is burned and the water vapor generated makes a turbine turn that allows this energy to be produced. With regards to transport, it is used similarly to gasoline or diesel, mixed in a certain percentage with the traditional fossil fuels to reduce the emission of greenhouse gases, or it is used exclusively in prepared engines, such as those of flexible fuel vehicles. It is also very useful to heat rooms, as is the case with bioethanol fireplaces and heaters. So now with bioethanol being mixed in a certain percentage, it actually varies. We have E85, which is 85% ethanol, 15% fuel. And then we also have E10, which is 10% ethanol, 90% petrol, and many others. So now with the ordinary cars that we have in the system, many of them can actually run on E10, which is the 85% ethanol, 15% fuel. They can actually run on it without getting broken down or any problems. And even with the newer cars that are being produced, they can run on E85, which is something that old car models may not be able to handle. Now let's move on to the uses of bioethanol. So, bioethanol can actually be used as a transport fuel to replace gasoline. So, as I explained earlier with E10 and E85, bioethanol can be used to replace gasoline, which is our traditional fuels. So, hopefully, with advancements in technology, cars can actually be made to fully run on bioethanol. Now, not only would this slash the high percentage of greenhouse gases which are currently being emitted, but it would also bring us one step closer to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals which have been set for 2050. With other uses of bioethanol, it can be used as a fuel for power generation by thermal combustion. It can be used as a fuel for fuel cells by thermochemical reaction. It can be used as a fuel in cogeneration systems and as a feedstock in the chemicals industry. So basically, from all these uses, we see that bioethanol can basically be used as a fuel in many different systems and vehicles. Now let's move on to the steps in bioethanol production. So the first step in bioethanol production is actually feedback handling. And feedback handling in bioethanol production is essential for optimizing the process and improving the yields while ensuring sustainability. From there, we move on to the pre-treatment stage, after which we move to SL separation, which stands for solid liquid separation. With the solid liquid separation, it involves separating the solid residue from the liquid components of the bioethanol. Now, after that, we move on to conditioning. which is the preparation of biomass or intermediary products to optimize the efficiency of subsequent processing steps. From conditioning, we move to saccharification and fermentation, after which we have distillation and ethanol purification, and then we end everything with the burner or the boiler turbo generator. So, what the burner and the boiler turbo generator do is that it enhances the overall efficiency of the bioethanol which would be used, and it reduces its environmental impacts. This is one reason why bioethanol is actually more preferred as compared to traditional fuel options. Now let's move on to the advantages of bioethanol production. So bioethanol reduces carbon dioxide emissions. So with the advantages of bioethanol production, or with the production of bioethanol itself, we know that anything that contains starch can be burnt. And then in its burning, carbon dioxide is actually produced. So you might be wondering how it actually goes on to reduce carbon dioxide emissions. But the thing is that as it's burned, it's actually absorbed by the plants as it grows, and is also much lower than what is generated by fossil fuels. The difference ranges from 19% when you use corn crops for your bioethanol production to 86% when you use biomass residues. So then we see how carbon dioxide emissions are gradually reduced when we decide to switch to bioethanol. Another advantage of bioethanol production is that it does not generate waste. Its combustion doesn't generate smells or waste, and the carbon dioxide that is generated when it is burnt can actually be captured and used in other industrial applications, such as the carbonation of drinks or even freezing. Another example is that it actually allows the amounts of rubbish generated in an urban center to be reduced, or in many places where you have huge heaps of rubbish. What you can actually do is that we can turn this rubbish that is being generated into bioethanol, because when we burn it, we get biomass, and from this biomass, we can get this bioethanol. So that's one huge advantage of bioethanol production, because not only are we producing fuels for cars and other systems, but we are also reducing the rubbish in the environment. Another advantage of bioethanol production is it's boosting the local economy, because with bioethanol production, it's not something that can be done by the layman or the average person. We need personnel to work at the bioethanol plants. We need jobs to be created in the agricultural sector. We need people to supply the raw materials. Bioethanol is just a way for a lot of jobs to actually be created. So then that's another benefit. It's boosting the local economy. Now, there are lots of other advantages of bioethanol, as you can see on the page currently. It has a more complete combustion as compared with other fossil fuels, so then it makes it a much cleaner exhaust than gasoline. Then again, there are numerous sources for this fuel as long as it contains starch or sugar. Now, there are lots of plants which generate carbohydrates, so as long as you can get starch or sugar from a plant, you can be sure to get bioethanol from that plant. Now, then again, countries which do not have access to crude oil resources can actually grow crops for energy use and gain some economic freedom. So now there are lots of countries which are not reliant on oil because they do not have oil. So with countries that do not have any source of oil, especially oil from other countries, and we know how that can greatly drain a country's resources. So then when a country does not have access to crude oil resources, they can actually grow plants and get bioethanol from these plants. It's actually used for everything else that they do. It aids in economic freedom. Other advantages also include that if fuel spills were to occur, it's actually much easier with bioethanol than with traditional fossil fuels, because it is biodegraded and it's actually diluted to non-toxic concentrations, so it's less dangerous. Finally, let's move on to the disadvantages of bioethanol production. Luckily, the disadvantages do not outweigh the advantages. But one of the disadvantages is that there's a loss of biodiversity. Because bioethanol is gotten from plants, it's in the name bio, you need to actually have a lot of land. So you can see that a large amount of arable land is required to grow the crops, which could see some natural habitats being destroyed, including rainforests. Now, even though bioethanol takes us one step closer to reducing the effects of climate change, it's almost like we are taking one step forward and two steps back because we actually need rainforests to harbor the effects of climate change. But here's the case where these rainforests will need to be cleared in order to generate this fuel, which isn't really good. So that's a disadvantage of bioethanol production. We also have the food or fuel debate. Now, there's a concern that due to the lucrative prices of bioethanol, some farmers may sacrifice food crops for biofuel production, which will increase food prices around the world. Now, in many places like in the UK and in France, because of how much better bioethanol is as compared to traditional fuel, the taxes on bioethanol are less, which means that the prices are more lucrative. So here lies the case where, we get bioethanol from plants and these plants are needed for food. So the farmers need to sell these plants to, those who are going to harvest the food so that we can actually get it on our shelves to buy. But here lies the case where in the farmers selling these plants for the production of bioethanol, we actually may not get enough food to eat. And especially as the prices are more lucrative and they would make more money from selling these plants for bioethanol production, there may be food shortage and that would increase the prices of food around the world. Now, thirdly, there's actually a debate over the neutrality of bioethanol when all elements are taken into consideration, including the cost of changing the land use of an area, transportation, and burning of the crop. Now, it's easy to think that, oh, there are only positives about bioethanol production and then there's nothing too negative about it, so we might as well just switch to bioethanol production completely. But here lies the case where, when you take all the elements into consideration and about how expensive it will be to change the land and then burning the crop and then all the transportation and everything else, you realize that it's not really the most cost effective or the most efficient. Finally, we realized that too many older cars are currently unequipped to handle even 10% of ethanol, while there's even a concern that using 100% ethanol decreases fuel economy by around 15 to 13% compared with 100% petroleum. So, yes, a lot of cars which are currently in the system are not modern. So then they cannot even handle something like E10, where the ethanol is only 10%. How much more E100, which is where the ethanol would be 100%. So then you can see that bioethanol decreases fuel economy, which doesn't happen with petroleum. So that's another disadvantage of bioethanol production. Okay, thank you so much for sticking and staying with me. That brings me to the end of this presentation. All of this couldn't have been done without the help of Felicity and Achu. So then I'm very grateful to them as well for helping me with this presentation. My references are on the next page, so you can look to see where I got all the information from. Thank you so much for watching Kim E Minds. Till next time. Bye.